Hi everyone, I'm Merryjest, and the reason I am making this video is because there are some recent developments that I think merit some attention, or rather long-standing developments that deserve stronger attention right now. For a few months now, Liana Kerzner has claimed that she has been receiving harassing and disturbing emails through her submission form on her It's Not Therapy website. And she has strongly hinted in her usually indirect way that the provenance of these messages, at least in part, come from my husband. For many months now, we have urged Kerzner to make the contents of these emails public, in great part because we wish to see them because we have no reason to send those emails. Any and all grievances that we may have regarding Kerzner have been aired in the public sphere, which is the same sphere that she brought the situation to when she singled my husband out as the sole cause of the delays and cancellation of her crowd-funded project Song of Sparkle Muffin. Now, since then, Kerzner has accused us of singling ourselves out when she did not in fact name names. So before I turn to the very serious situation at hand regarding these harassing messages, I need to point something out. The Kickstarter page lists only 2 team members, Kerzner and myself. My spouse is named in my profile by his given name, as well as the name of our company. Game imprint is right there. Furthermore, my moniker as Merryjest has been around the internet since at least 2001, and I have been known across several communities under that name for decades. In addition, my given name is linked to my artistic moniker in the music albums that have been launched through several distribution services, as well as the copyright footer of my performer webpage. My moniker is more than just a username. It is my brand as an artist, musician, singer, writer, and composer. And no one else on the internet ever goes by that moniker. Kerzner's claims that she has not named us or singled us out by inference are therefore untrue. Unless she wishes to sustain the possibility that there was a scenario in which she argued with her own husband and then took his side against herself. But really, the reason we wanted to see these emails is because sharing them can give clues as to who sent them. Contrary to popular belief, AI cannot actually faithfully recreate a person's writing style long form. It can mimic certain linguistic affectations and quirks. But all language learning models, by virtue of their training, will default to very specific tells and are incapable of reaching the same level of authenticity as an actually embodied intelligence with a psychological baggage and a history. We all use language in a very unique and individual way, which is the basis of forensic authorship analysis. LLMs have an irrevocable tendency to handle rhetorical figures in a very idiosyncratic way. How the alleged speaker handles or avoids parataxis, diacoby, tricolon, antithesis, and asymmetry, among other rhetorical figures, are glaring telltale signs that require extensive human rewriting and editing to erase. And in that rewriting, the rewriter's authorship and unique stylometric features will be imprinted. To put short, no human being can truly disguise their own writing and linguistic style long form, no matter how much they tried. Ever since LLMs made significant appearances in the horizon, I've made a careful and meticulous study of the issue, and I have learned to spot many of the telltale signs with pinpoint accuracy. Who knew that all those hours studying rhetoric with the Jesuits in high school would come to be useful against our AI overlords? Not this guy, but let me tell you something though. Don't rely on M dashes as the telltale sign, because some of us had very strict priests in typing class forcing us to memorize the key combos. But nevertheless, I have very strong evidence that I believe points me towards the identity of at least one of the authors of the emails that not only Kerzner is receiving, but also ones that Sage and Audrey have received as well. There may be other recipients, but we don't know. The difficult part, of course, is that Kerzner hasn't published the contents of the first nastygram or any of the subsequent nastygrams that she has attributed to my husband. Eventually, though, the contents of the first one were made known to me. Most likely after someone noticed that we kept asking repeatedly for the contents to be known. I am very grateful that this now can see the light of day because it contains some very valuable information. The problem with samples that are short is that the subject doesn't have a lot of room to give away their idiolect or their idiosyncratic orthography, especially if they copy other people's texts. But there's always a chance, and in this case there was. Looking back at it, I realized that Kerzner had all the pieces of the puzzle in her hands to realize that whomever sent this was not Asher. First of all, 90% of it was a mishmash of phrases Asher had said over social media over months, hacked together and squished together in one of the most incompetent ways possible. If that shit were a cake, it would look like this. Most importantly, though, notice that there is a massive style shift in language. This is the end of my rebuttal to your 72 blah, blah, blah. From that point on, if you know Asher's writing style and his method of building an argument and a conclusion, you'll immediately spot a massive style shift. And that style shift is very distinctive. While 90% of this reads like someone was following Asher around with a tape recorder and hit record at random times, the final section reads like an entirely different person stepped in. And that's because that's exactly what happened. I just realized that there's a substantial number of you people who have never seen a tape recorder or much less used it. God damn. In any case, there's things about this section of the post that are a little familiar. It should be familiar to Liana, if anything because of the name Ein Fand. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Due to the fact that people's memories aren't what they were due to social media and potentially COVID, no, seriously, there are some scary studies about what COVID does to the brain and memory. So let me refresh the story for those who know it and introduce it to the friends who are just tuning into it. So, picture it. Halloween 2017. Pre-pandemic, a quaint little shop opens up in a strip mall. The name? The Gorehounds Playground. It was a cool little store that focused on B movies, horror, camp, and all sorts of strange and weird cinematography. On top of it all, it had an awesome little movie showing room in the back and regular movie showings. In fact, one of my first and favorite experiences with that store is I took a bunch of friends to watch a movie. There was a werewolf festival going on, and they brought friends. So, and we sat down to watch was what turned out to be a. It turned out to be a werewolf-themed lesbian softcore movie. Like the first moment a boob flopped out, you could cut the tension with a knife. We were all silent. And then, once the shock wore off and the notion of what exactly we were watching landed, then it turned into a free-for-all. It became Mystery Science Theater 3000, and it was hilarious. To this day, one of my friends considers that to be one of his favorite bonding stories between us. In my defense, the week before, they had shown Frankenhooker. And that was a smart and very subversive movie that explored sexism in weird ways, in its own little way, underneath all of the 80s cheese. So I thought an erotic werewolf in London was going to be something like that. Things you learn, man. In any case, the city only had one independent filmmakers group, and it was tied to the local indie movie theater art house, so it had a propensity for being a little pretentious. The owner of this store wanted to start another filmmakers group to kind of be the counterbalance, tied to B movies and all of that. It would skew closer to horror and camp and the weird and comedic, so we thought, hey, that sounds cool, so Asher and I joined in to help. So, the person behind Ein Fand is a local man with a very interesting history, whom I will call Mario for the purposes of this video. He first approached the owner of the store via Facebook, pretending to be an agent from the Morris agency by the name of Shifu. I know. The name on the chat is not Shifu, but bear with me. It gets worse. In any case, the owner of the store was chill as fuck. You couldn't impress him with that sort of stuff. So after Shifu failed to get any traction of oohs and ahs, some guy came into the store in person, calling himself Mario Matei. That turned out to be a false name, of course. He tried to pull his weight around, implying that he knew contacts in the industry and essentially trying to be a big fish, the Hollywood man, in a B-movie rental independent movie maker store. I know, but it's all true. But wait, it gets worse. Of course, he joined the filmmakers group, and by this point, Asher and the store owner were in talks about how to create a culture that would foster the filmmakers. Asher floated the idea of a movie review blog that would also double as a social hub, and an internal streaming service for the short movies that would be made during the movie festival that the owner intended to announce. Asher right away got to working on it, and the blog got going, and the framework was in place. People now just needed to start making movies. Mario tried to basically insert himself into every important group, from the podcast group to the movie makers group to everything else. He tried to befriend Asher, and he would spend hours talking to him over the phone. At first, we thought that he was just a little awkward and had some sort of anxiety, but little by little, we started noticing that he slipped in very judgmental things about some of the leading members of the group who had struggled with substance abuse at one point or another. At one point, he tried to convince Asher that the dynamics of the store and the group were an exercise in triangulation because it was, in his own words, like an alcoholic family's home. He tried to stage a coup to take over control of the filmmaker group several times, at one point even trying to get Asher to back him up, which didn't happen. by that point we were getting suspicious. And then, of course, came the pièce de résistance. He told us that he was going to put us in contact through Facebook Messenger with his personal assistant in Hollywood, who was also an excellent rapper, private investigator, was black, and his name was Lucius Fox. I really wish I were making this shit up. But wait, you've seen that name before, right? And no, not in Batman, in this video. We'll get to that. Now, Mario would go on business trips at infrequent intervals out of town, at which point we were supposed to communicate with racist caricature suck puppet number 2. The first one being, of course, Shifu. Considering who we're talking about here, I'm so glad he decided to not create a Latin American sock puppet for his personal assistant. Otherwise, I might have ended up talking with Maraca Pandebono. Now, I'll explain that first chat window I showed you. The funny thing is that Lucius Fox also messaged the owner of the store at one point later. This guy forgot which account he had tried to scam the owner of the store with the first time around. When he decided to come up with his new persona, he renamed Shifu to Lucius Fox, completely memory holding that he had sent a message to the store owner through it months ago. I found out because I was made one of the social media managers of the store's Facebook account, and going through all of the old messages, I found that out. Things with Mario were getting weirder and weirder, and we realized that it was Mario who was trying to triangulate everybody, trying to foster as much infighting and division in the group as possible to destabilize it so he could take over. A B-movie independent filmmakers group attached to a movie rental store in the 2010s. It doesn't matter how many times I say it, it doesn't get any less sad or disturbing. Now, the two events that spelled doom for Mario came pretty close to each other. He invited one of the women of the group to have a cup of coffee and talk shop with him. It soon became apparent, though, that he was trying to flirt. When the woman in question informed him that she was a lesbian, Mario reportedly never looked at her in the eye again throughout that entire evening and spent the remainder of the very awkward dinner mumbling to himself. That was pretty alarming. Then he met one of my friends, and he kept trying to gauge her interest in acting in one of his movies, at one point asking her bluntly what her sexuality was. Probably because, lesbian earlier. And my friend quite smartly replied, monogamous. Not long after that, Mario tried to suggest that we take a trip to Vegas, but that we needed female energy to break up the male energy in the room, and so therefore we should bring my friend with us without her husband. That's the moment we went nope. Then we found out about the other incident, and all of this came to light. The guy was ousted from the group after pulling an "I'm not being kicked out, I'm leaving because you're all losers." Problem was that he had property that belonged to us. 2 books that we had loaned him early on, which were collectibles. So we had an investment in recovering them. Trying to get back our property was a chore. He kept being evasive, and eventually we confronted him with his real name, which we had found out in the interim because Asher does what Asher does. This sent him spiraling in a text of flurries that covers at least 20 pages of screenshots, which we still have. We have everything he's ever texted us or written in the filmmakers group. The reason we used his name was to show him that we knew whom we needed to name in case we had to file a stolen property report. Eventually, we were able to get our books back, but since that day, the dude absolutely hates Asher for essentially screwing his takeover of the local B-movie store's filmmaker group. Later, we found out that before he came to our group, he had been kicked out of the other filmmakers group as well, because of course. Since then, though, he has emerged like a boomer Puxatani Phil at regular intervals to troll us, adopting several identities from different accounts, many of which are many years old that he just clearly keeps around for that purpose on YouTube and Facebook, as his early interactions show. Ein Fand was his first emergence after being ousted from the group. Kerzner and Asher were talking at the time over Telegram. When he reared his head, Asher sent Kerzner some screenshots of it. So, of course, when Kerzner made that train wreck of a cancellation announcement, blaming the whole thing on Asher, it was like Christmas in July for him. He even posted onto her YouTube announcement of the cancellation, doxing us. The comment was removed, but we captured it. As you can see, all the style markers are there, same use of language. But that's not where he stopped. One thing that you need to know about Mario is that this guy is like, what if the cable guy existed in real life? He was raised by TV and is incapable of thinking in things unless they're framed in pop culture, horror, or movie trappings. He often makes textual references to laughing like a cartoon character, Alf or Daffy Duck, and has a penchant for occasionally referencing Bugs Bunny. Throughout this shitstorm, he's reared his head multiple times. In fact, Liana, you interacted with him directly. You probably don't know you did. Do you remember Jada? I think you might. After all, they approached you with great concern about us textbook criminals, and you seemed very interested in their knowledge of how you could file a restraining order against us for speaking up, until you realized that this was someone trying to play you. Take a note of the username. So, having failed to play you, this guy did a shifu, and I guess he forgot he had used the same account to try to get you to file that idiotic lawsuit against us. Or at the time, he didn't know that Blue Sky allows you to change your usernames an unlimited number of times. But he would learn that soon enough. But for now, Jada became the dust of ages, and in her stead came a prouder, greater one. The coming of Yumtacular was at hand. I swear to God, this shit didn't happen when David Bowie was alive. Anyways, Yumtacular tried to get into an argument with Asher by the repeating of the mental health stigma language that you incidentally have normalized when referring to Asher, so good job there for mental health advocacy. I don't care about that video that you recently tried to wash your hands with. I will be dealing with that later. When we didn't bite, and didn't get into the ugly argument that he clearly wanted to get out of us, he said something incredibly telling. Yeah. Kind of played his hand a bit strong there, isn't it? So to recap, Mario set up a fake account impersonating Nicole Clevenger, who is the owner of the Salty Marshmallow website, got into an extremely and obviously forced argument with Asher, extremely obvious, and then claimed she had been sent unhinged emails even though it didn't get into an ugly confrontation. Now, this isn't that different from what he tried to do at the video rental store, where he was trying to make people suspect one of the other members of trying to take over the group, control the store's Facebook account. He even created an email in the name of one of the other leaders of the group, trying to get the Facebook account reassigned to it, which failed spectacularly because we caught on. Here, though, he was in a bit of a bind. He probably realized that impersonating someone with an actual presence and a company could be problematic for him, especially if someone reached out to Nicole to verify whether the account on Blue Sky actually belonged to her. And if it did, why wasn't the account verified through the easy domain verification thing that they do. So of course, he had to make tracks. Yumtacular was no more. The account vanished. But wait, it gets worse. Enter a whole slew of username changes. This time, he was pretending to be a Canadian woman who voted for Mark Carney. Now, for the record, this guy is full on ultra right wing, because of course he is. He came in with the narrative that we were two layoffers who had just clung to your blindly brilliant celebrity status, and now we're ultra mad that you had cast us aside. At once we could tell it was the same guy, same style of writing, same emoji usage, some idiosyncratic orthography, which you may have noticed by now. But we needed him to write some more. The more dismissive he is, the more the core of him comes through. Like in that rant during the books episode. So that's when Asher decided to make a few boastful claims about the famous people that we knew. Of course, he did spin out, and a lot of the things that he said there definitely hit a lot of the markers. And he would continue on this bend until you decided to echo the Kiwi farmer narrative that Asher was a pedophile to an actually virtuous pedophile friend of Poppy's. That exchange in and of itself was gold, Liana. 100% gold. You portrayed Asher as mentally confused, offering incomprehensible reasons, which is wonderful mental health advocacy there, by the way, and heavily implying that there was a credible space for believing Asher was a pedophile. I'll address that at some other time because there's a lot to unpack here. And right now we're unpacking Mario and there's a lot of baggage in there. So, voted for Carney started picking up the narrative you had so conveniently laid out, but then he started changing usernames again. We did track his DID, so we were able to follow where he was and what names he was going under. That's how we saw him doxing us, posting our addresses on Blue Sky. Immediately, a new Kiwi farmer appears on the scene, called Drunk as a Wonk, with the exact same writing style. And they proceeded to post all of our information on Kiwifarms, our photos, addresses, full names, dates of birth, etc., along with your post and the message that Asher was a pedophile, exposing an actual innocent person, at-risk individual, to the very credible risk of harm, all claims of which are completely false. So thank you, Liana. I'll have more to say about that at some other point. But now we're dealing with Mario. One mark of this particular individual's style is long tirades of "your shit," followed by a conciliatory "maybe we can talk." He did it in a long-ass rant he went into when he tried to recover the books. We tried to recover the books, that is. He did it on Kiwifarms and, of course, in a short form, the Nastygram. So, you got manipulated by someone who sent you out-of-context snippets of Asher's phrases and then racked a clumsily written phrase on top of it all. The thing is, I have a very hard time buying it. You've read Asher's stories, you've read his writing, you're an editor, and you know how he writes. I had considered that you didn't post it publicly because you knew that Asher and I would immediately point out all the 50 shades of what the fuck of why that was clearly a forgery, like my friend Fumph, who's known Asher for twice as long as you did, the moment he saw the screen cap. And anyone who knew Asher at all, anyone, would know that he'd never write a sentence like that. And that particular sentence. The bad news is this. This guy will impersonate anyone he wants to. Jada, the name he used, belonged to a furry in Canada. He will try to triangulate communities from within to destroy them. He might be in your server. I don't know for sure. But he has an uncanny way of infiltrating everything and anything. If he is there, he's probably been there for a few months already at the very least. He's certainly extremely invested in you and I taking each other out, figuratively speaking, especially if it can hurt Asher. That's why he tried to encourage you to pursue legal action against us for legal speech. When that didn't work out, I theorized that he probably has been redoubling his efforts in sending those messages. I imagine that with a sufficient number of those, you might feel justified in pursuing legal recourse for harassment, threatening, and goodness knows what else this sick puppy has come up with. In fact, he reared his head rather recently. You see, I wrote an expose about a transphobic, homophobic landlord in Second Life by the name of Ansar. Now, Mr. Ansar is a man of Egyptian origin, and understandably has notable difficulties with the English language because English is a language that is dark and full of terrors. So it's understandable. However, not too long after the expose came out, a second account popped up on Facebook. Ansar already had an account, but this second account posted this message. Now, for context, let me show you how Ansar usually writes. Suddenly, though, his English got substantially better. I believe you can now see some of those style and rhetorical markers in his message, can't you? Oh, and one thing, he doesn't do it all the time, but he does it pretty frequently. Cheers!
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you wanna go.
Now, I know that the most recent message that you published, Liana, may look like the person you already suspect. It may look like her writing on the surface. And it does. But I have reasons to believe that that message may actually be Mario. Especially since that message included an implied threat of physical harm in a way that is very consistent with the way Mario writes, in a way that is very consistent with the threats he wrote towards Asher when he was writing as voted for Mark Carney. This is an incredibly manipulative person. As we've said, he's a local man, lives not too far away from us. Our research has revealed some pretty unsettling things. He's married, has been for many years, including during the time where he was trying to score with our friends, and has two stepchildren. The circumstances under which the wife divorced her previous husband are disturbing and not altogether clear. The ex-husband suffered from some sort of mental illness or personality disorder. We have reason to believe that Mario attached himself as a destabilizing presence in that household. There are recordings of this man leaving voicemails on the phone to his wife asking her to keep Mario away from his children. This man, whatever his faults, was eventually hospitalized and he passed away. Mario's stepdaughter, the youngest of the two siblings, sided with Mario, and her older brother sided with their biological father. The series of events is not entirely clear, but at some point Mario and his wife brought a restraining order against their older child. Mario, as I have told you before, has dozens of aliases all over the internet, if not more, but under the alias of Blake Washington, which isn't his real name, using his actual real-life photograph posted on Scribd, a very interesting document that claimed it was a sex offender court record under his stepson's name. What it actually is a report of his wife running into the stepson rather conveniently at a Starbucks in a grocery store, whereupon a confrontation occurred, and the police were called. Now, if you were to read the wife and the son's statements, they read perfectly fine, terse and descriptive of a tense and emotional event, although opposite in the details. Mario's account, though, it's weird. It's sprawling, full of unnecessary details and insinuations, including speaking about alleged violations of the stepson's restraining order, which Mario had conveniently not reported at those times, driving the narrative that the stepson would constantly try to intimidate Mario and follow him relentlessly. And here's an interesting tidbit. For the purposes of privacy, Mario is blue and his stepson is red. I think it's very interesting that Mario's son is accusing Mario of being another user in disguise. I've already established a credible link of posts that show linguistic matches, idiosyncratic punctuation such as relentless preference for medial ellipses but a constant aversion of aposiopesis, very liberal use of emojis and smiley faces, very particular types of insults, and very recognizable pejorative tones, with a tendency to oscillate in register in predictable patterns and distinctive sentence construction. You probably now see this fingerprint all over what he touches. I think his stepson could see them too. I don't know if his stepson is guilty or innocent, nor what quality of a person he is, but I think it's very interesting and familiar that when someone is exercising their freedom of speech to criticize him, Mario's first impulse is to try to intimidate someone through the law. He tried to intimidate us with the police when we asked our property be returned. Remember Jada and what she tried to get you to do? Yeah. These are the tactics of abusers. Just like his trademark, you are shit, you are shit, you are shit, maybe we can work things out. The approach, which you see even in his posts on Kiwifarms, which is peak. I'm hitting you, but maybe we can work things out. There's also this. Mario brought accusations of molestation against his stepson regarding the stepdaughter. Or that is what he claims. You see, in this report, he tells the local police that there is a closed case in Wyoming, but local police in the report don't make mention of verifying this report because it's not relevant to the incident at hand, which is the violation of a restraining order. However, I believe Mario mentions this so that it can be on police record that this was claimed. Nevertheless, if such a closed case existed and the stepson was found guilty, he'd be registered in the National Sex Offenders Registry. Searches for his name and all aliases turned up blank. I can't verify, therefore, the veracity of this report. But considering he labeled this document sex offender court records in a public upload when it was not that, but someone who doesn't know much about the law could look at the report and take that mention in the report as positive proof that such a case exists. I am cautiously going to say that this seems like it could be a defamation and endangerment campaign against a most likely troubled individual who seems to have inherited his father's instability and has been frozen out by his family, especially by a stepfather who seems to be looking out for every avenue possible to bury him because the kid may have recognized what he was. There's a third child in the mix by the name of Asher. Yeah, I told you it got weird. The daughter's social media profile is very strange. There are several Facebook accounts in her name, most of them inactive. The only one that had any regular posting was an account of what a monster her biological father was, which reads very much like it was written by Mario. A post about how wonderful Mario was as a stepfather. But there's also a video where she points to a calendar and says, "Yes, it's me." The post hints that she's addressing rumors that the account is not really her and might be someone else pretending to be her, perhaps Mario. The strange thing, though, is that the day that the month her finger is touching in the calendar doesn't match the day of the month that the video was posted in. The video was posted on December 3rd, but there are only 30 days in the calendar that she's touching. I mean, yes, she could have taken the video on November 30th to be precise, but then why post it on December 3rd if she was trying to dispel doubts that it was really her controlling the account? If anything, that would make it more suspicious, right? You could say, well, the video maybe was taken on the 30th, but something happened and she couldn't upload it. Well, if it were you posting a video to verify it was you, wouldn't you just reshoot it on the day you're actually posting it? So there's a lot that's just plain weird, doesn't add up. Bunch of red flags. All throughout, there is a dark and disturbing undercurrent that hints at a lifelong pattern of impersonation and triangulation, and the targeting of neurodivergent and mentally ill individuals whom he clearly sees as subhuman. He also clearly feels that way towards queer individuals. Incidentally, I would like to address Mario now, who I know is watching. Don't even think about it. The evidence I have exposed here is only a small fraction of what we have legally gathered over the last few years. Enough to make our case. Copies of the evidence are also in the hands of 3 different people I trust implicitly, who have instructions on what to do with the evidence should anything happen to me or Asher, including legal avenues and a complete and total dissemination of the evidence to authorities and other parties. Don't even try taking this video down. It is now being hosted on multiple places across the internet, and it is also now part of the Internet Archive. Make your exit, because you're not going to accomplish anything here anymore. Stop tormenting these people. Stop toying with people altogether and tend to your stolen family if you still have it. Now to Liana. I said I was willing to give you the benefit of the doubt in this. I have many reasons, and many valid reasons that I can back up with incontrovertible evidence to be angry at you for behavior that is quite frankly unforgivable. You have divulged extremely personal, private information that was given to you under the confidentiality of friendship, that you have divulged to mock and ridicule vulnerable people, my husband and others. When I have never divulged anything that you said to me in confidence, in secret, not even to my husband, because that's what friendship is. And that's the difference between us, Kerzner. I hope you remember what Rosh Hashanah is all about, because your behavior has been abominable. And I hope that this video reminds you of a claim I've often made. I never make claims I can't back up. And I am angry about this too. Angry because it seems to me that after 5 years, you don't have the sense to know better, that we would never resort to this. But this is me choosing the best possible interpretation, because I would be even angrier if I thought for a moment that you did know better and chose to capitalize on a narrative that conveniently helped demonize Asher further, putting him at risk. But as I said, I am giving you the benefit of the doubt, because I know receiving these messages, especially repeatedly over a period of time, is terrifying. Regardless of how embittered our disagreements are, you don't deserve it. Not you, not Audrey, not Sage, and not anyone else who may not have been speaking up about this. And that's what I wanted to say to all of you. Speak up, post, expose. This person and people like him thrive on driving conflict. He was drawn to you because, admit it or not, you farm a lot of outrage and conflict that you keep evergreen by constantly talking about, not really talking about, everyone who has ever crossed you on your channel and on your radio show, so that they then feel they have to defend themselves, and they feed into a cycle of never-ending conflict where you can always farm the suffering in the public eye. And this is the kind of person that gets drawn to that, especially when it comes to neurodivergent and queer spaces whom he hates. He wants nothing more than you and I to take each other out, figuratively speaking. He wants you to pursue legal action against us, and for me to defend and retaliate. Triangulation 101. And if it ends in Asher dying or being institutionalized, all the better. The more you allude to things and speak in vague terms and not name things or people so that you can be talking about anyone and everyone, the more space you create for dangerous shit like this to happen. Talk about reckless, irresponsible, and unaccountable. The world is burning down, and all of you are playing the same kind of stupid games that people like this dude want you to play. And as stupid as those games are, you don't deserve to be terrorized. None of you do. And none of you is alone in this. And Liana, heed my words about this person. If you doubt our ability to put data together, let me remind you of something. Do you remember that author you referred to me for creative consulting? The one who was obsessed with outsiders and was extremely sore that the author denied any kind of queer reading into the narrative, so he wanted to write his own version of it, except gay with demon possession? The troll account who started trolling me, Hugo Not Derek, Movie Pirate, appeared shortly after that. You remember that whole thing, so I don't need to go into great detail on that. But Asher dug into that account and found him messaging S.E. Hinton, the author of Outsiders, obsessively. Incredibly coincidental, right? But then we got to work some more. You remember what username that author had on Discord way back when? Heather Forever. Now, have you taken a good look at the invoiced payments you received from him before you shunted him off to me to be a creative consultant there? I think you might want to. PayPal should still have those records, and I would download them if I were you. But if you look back there, take a look at the other name that he listed on his account. Does that sound familiar? That's not a real person, incidentally. It's a reference to the visual novel series Unimeko When They Cry, about which the Kiwi farmer Shaniqua posts on Kiwifarms frequently. Also, coincidentally, or not so much, Shaniqua posted on Kiwifarms about their young adult novel finally being published at the same time that our author's novel, the one where I was a creative consultant in, Outsiders But Gay with Demons, was published. The links between the author, the Twitter troll account, and the Kiwifarms account were all solidly established by Asher's research. And there were far many more indicators than just these. Asher made sure to dig up a lot more over a period of time. These are just the more salient ones. But you knew. Asher did the detective work and gave you a long list of usernames associated with this person, including Erica Ferrudo, who has commented on your YouTube channel several times, and Heather Forever, whom, as I understand, was the one who leaked screenshots from your server and who identified that they were a Kiwi farmer when you confronted them.
Thank you for the kind words, the thorns wrapped in roses, all your magnanimous poses. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the kind words, the chance we've been given for us to be forgiven. Thank you, thank you.
You wouldn't have needed to do that if you had listened to Asher and believed him. For your sake, listen to us now. The Kiwi farmer is a nuisance. But this guy? You and your community and our Kiwi farmer author friend can laugh at Asher saying that he is in danger. But this man flails at the end of all of your activity and theirs. And he can easily harm us, or encourage someone else to harm us under false pretenses of vigilante justice. I know he has been spotted in a library that's very close to our home. He's dangerous. And he quoted you repeatedly to Kiwifarms. And you said nothing.
You make kindness bleed like every other ghoul. You're only kind to be cruel. Open up and feed.
Think about that. And thank you for the kind words.